What's up, gamers? And today I want to talk to you about Miss Lingsha. Is she a must pull? Is she not a must pull? How good is she compared to every other sustained character in the game? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video, guys. We're going to see what value she can actually offer your account outside of her main teams, what value she can offer you more than in every other sustained tanker healer in the game. So we're going to go over all of that today. Oh wait, pause, stop right there. You thought we were about to get to these comparisons before me scamming you and telling you to subscribe to my channel. This video is going to get disliked on. Please hit that subscribe button now. I'd really appreciate it, because now I want to take her into a comparison, a gauntlet even, against all of the other sustained characters in the game. That goes for both tanks and healers. Let's see how she stacks up. What more can she give the team over everyone else in the game, and what more can these other characters give for your allies as well? So let's go ahead and hop into it now and see how good she really is. Where is she going to match up against these other sustained characters? All right, gamers, so let's take a look here on the list. Now I have HUO HUO over here and also Lingsha over here. The reason I have them on opposite sides is because they are the most different in comparison. Like, she has a lot of similarities with Gallagher, and she has similarities with Luocha as well. The only similarity that maybe they have is AoE healing, but we'll get into that in a second here. Now, what I want to go over first is, what do they all do? All of these characters here, guys, will literally keep the team alive. Realistically, guys, if you have any two, like, either signature 5-star sustained characters, or if you have Gallagher on your account and he's doing fine for you already, I really wouldn't recommend pulling on Lingsha. It's just wasted value, wasted resources you've thrown into a character, if you want my honest opinion. Maybe if they add 3-team type modes in the future, then she'll become more prevalent there. But as of right now, there's not any 3-team game modes that they have right now. If you have 2 signature sustains, really don't recommend pulling. But now let's go ahead and get into the comparisons here, guys. Starting off with I want to start with the comparisons and differences between Gallagher and her first. So all in all, guys, for Gallagher, we have he's single target. He puts 2 debuffs on the enemy. E4 is kind of needed, guys, because E2 is going to unlock his cleanse and a longer heal at E4, because it puts Besoder on the enemy for 1 turn longer, meaning whenever they attack, he kind of works like Luocha in a way. It's like basically having Luocha's field up for 1 extra turn for your allies. Then that means they can heal off their own attacks, though this does not heal your allies that are not attacking too much. So if they're using kind of basic attacks, they're not going to get as much healing back. But overall, guys, still pretty solid healer, especially if you can get him to E4. E4 is super important with him. Big thing with her, she has AoE healing with skill, ultimate, and Fuyon follow-up attack. She has follow-up attacks. She has 1 debuff on the enemy whenever she uses her ultimate move, and then she does an AoE cleanse, which is just super nice. Whenever Fuyon comes around, you get a cleanse on all of your allies for 1 debuff. Now let's go ahead and hop into the similarities and differences between Miss Luocha and Lingsha here. So they're both going to be giving out a free heal. He gives out a single target heal, while she gives off an AoE heal, so that automatically makes him a single target guy here. Another thing that she does is, the difference with the free heal is his threshold for that free heal is a 50%, while hers is a 60% for her free heal, which targets 1 ally here, while as she targets the whole fucking team here. Luocha is easier to build. I disagree. Both require attack to build here, guys. I would say probably the easier one to build is probably Lingsha over this one. Overall, I do think her buff with break effect to attack really does help her out more than what Luocha gives, because Luocha doesn't really give himself any free stats at all. One thing I forgot to mention, guys, both of them have break effect scaling, so that is to note the similarities between these two right here. But Luocha is also going to have an AoE strip as well, meaning if you're fighting those guys that do respawns of themselves that have an extra life, if you hit them with an ult before you kill them, it actually strips them for their respawn, and the enemies won't respawn anymore. Same thing can be said with enemies that have like buffs on them that can be removed, because we do have some enemies in the game that their buffs cannot be removed. So that is also a very big difference between these two characters as well. Healing from allies attacks, that is something really big that he does, guys, because he puts the whole field down, and whenever your allies attack, then they get healing versus them. Yeah, AoE strip, bro. Yeah, he's stripping. He's a stripper, bro. He met Ocho and then from the Honkai universe, and he's stripping now. Also, another pretty big difference as well, as Luocha does have built-in like effect res, or a CC res anyways. That means you don't have to build as much into your effect res, because he is giving himself a pretty large, what is it, 70% CC debuff. So if you have 30% added onto him for effect res, that means that he is basically not going to be CC'd. Gallagher also gives himself a lot of F res at E1, guys. That is something that she does not give herself at all. She has practically no effect res in her kit, meaning you're probably going to want to build it up as a defensive stat, because, well, I guess if she gets CC'd, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, if she gets CC'd, it doesn't matter, because all these other characters, if they get CC'd, they can't heal. She can still heal if she is CC'd, which is, I guess, a plus side for her, right? She's not like the general where the lightning lord stops whenever the general CC'd. For her, that's not really the case. Whenever she CC'd, Fuyon still comes through and heals. Yeah, Fuyon better than lightning peasant. I agree 100%. Now, let's get into the one I really want to talk about, which is the difference between her and Ms. HUO HUO. First of all, HUO HUO gives E, right? So let's just go ahead and put E regen, right? She gives a fuck ton of energy regen to the team. She's also going to be giving a pretty fat attack buff to the whole team as well. Next thing up here, guys, she is going to be doing a lot of cleansing. So let's put a lot of cleanse. Basically, you get cleanse every single time an ally goes or does an action, and then whenever their turn comes back up, they get cleanse as well. This is for 6 times, so just put a lot of cleanse here. You shouldn't really be debuffed when she's on the field. Now, this cleanse is going to be on their turn, so it has to wait for their turn to come around before they're actually cleansed. So if your allies do get CC'd, then kind of very cringe there. Oh, we should put a DPS here as well. I forgot. She is a DPS. She does the most damage out of any other sustain here. I don't know if I haven't put the here already. She is more DPS coded than any of these other sustains here. Just want to let that be known. She does blast healing, so she's only targeting 3 of your allies that are getting heals versus Lingsha, which heals the whole team. I would say probably HUO HUO a little bit more efficient in it, just because every time their turn comes around, they heal. A subtractor here, guys, she kind of falters when you have a team that uses no energy or doesn't have like that much of energy regen. So, for example, Fei Zhao teams, not very good there. Also, she is not going to be very good for Acheron teams as well because she has no energy. Fuck. Now, obviously, I think the 2 best healers here are obviously Lingsha and HUO HUO here. It's really going to depend on what team you have them in, is like where they're actually performing their best in, right? If I were to say second best in slot here, you can kind of run him really anywhere. I actually prefer Gallagher over Luocha. Gallagher is kind of like a mini Luocha in a way. And 4th best is right here, right? So, I mean, I think she does offer you a lot more value than someone like Luocha can offer, especially with the extra attacks she's able to do. Does she offer much more efficiency than Gallagher? Probably not. I mean, maybe in the grand scheme of things on like a non-break team she does, just because she has those follow-up attacks that can be random follow-up teams, so it helps out follow-up teams more. So, I mean, if you're just pulling it for a break team, I really don't think you're going to see that much of an increase over Gallagher. You probably will see some increase because I think her damage overall will be more because her Fuyon attacks is going to attack more than what Gallagher's putting out there with his attacks, because he only attacks every one of his turns, and she can attack off turn with her summons as well, which leads to more super break damage in break related teams, and also just more damage in follow-up teams in general. Now, between HUO HUO and this, I'm gonna keep it a buck, guys. They are very, very similar. I would say they're pretty much on par. I really don't see much of a difference here. The real benefit with running her on the team here, you could probably much better run her on an Acheron team just because her ult does give a debuff. You could probably run her better on like dot teams and stuff like that, but I mean, overall, there's not really, I really don't see too much of a difference, right? Like, Fei Zhao, this would also work better too, but Aventurine, I think, already kind of has a place on that team. But anyways, let's go ahead and now and talk about the best tanks, or comparing all the tanks together. You better prepare, guys. Fu Xuan's getting shit on. All right, gamers, so now let's go ahead and talk about all of our sustains. Yeah, sorry, flashbang the fuck out because we got this shit here. First of all, as we know here, they can all sustain very nicely, right? So let's go ahead and put sustain here. I think the closer comparison here is going to be between Aventurine and her, because they're both kind of like the follow-up adjacent characters. She's more structured towards break, though, where I think he's more structured towards follow-up damage. And then Fu Xuan is just kind of like, she's Fu Xuan. That's all I got to say there. But yeah, overall, they can sustain the team, even though I think Fu Xuan is the worst at it. You can see her dropping on the tier list every single week, and she is getting worse and worse and worse. So, with my slander of Fu Xuan out of the way, we have someone in chat coming up with some points for Fu Xuan. Let's go ahead and talk about the comparison between Aventurine and her, right? Both of them do follow-up attacks, right? So, follow-up is a very big role on both of these characters, right? Now, the big difference here, guys, is going to be, first of all, Lingsha is going to have corrective healing, meaning she is correcting the health of your allies that are taking away. He has preventive type of defense, right? So that means he's blocking everything out with his shields, which is always super, super nice to see. I prefer preventative over corrective, in my honest opinion, because then you can't get fucked in one attack usually, because the shield normally blocks it out. Whereas corrective healing, if you get killed in one shot, you get killed in one shot. And that is one of my big problems with Fu Xuan. Let's get on the Fu Xuan slander a bit. She has little preventative damage and little corrective damage, all right? She has very small amounts of both, right? She has damage mitigation, which is not really, like, she's preventing some of the damage from incoming, but she's not preventing all the damage from incoming. So she's like a half preventative damage in a way, And she also has a problem with corrective healing as well. Like, she has some corrective healing, but the healing's not much. So low amounts of both, right? So that's like putting corrective and preventative healing. She does both, but not at a very good level. She's trying to be a jack of all trades, but it really doesn't work out for her. No, it's not. This is a real and true take. Okay, guys, so we decided to put mitigation and low heals because she kind of does both, right? So say you lose your shield Aventurine, right? He's not going to heal you back up. Your health is what your health is. He is not going to correct that, but he will prevent as much damage from being taken as possible while she mitigates damage. Your allies, if they get AoE attacks, they are always going to be taking damage. Now, I do think her strong suit is more single target oriented attacks versus AoE attacks because she actually absorbs damage. So we can go ahead and put that here. Whenever your allies take damage, she takes a portion of that damage and then mitigates damage as well. So she's absorbing some of that damage, and she has a self-sustaining factor, meaning she can heal herself back up. So let's put self-sustain as well, right? I'm not, dude. What are you on about? Milky EO wannabe? Well, the Honkai Star Rail community needs me, so I just gotta say it, right? Fu Xuan, y'all are coping your ass off with Fu Xuan. She is getting worse and worse with every single patch. The longer the fights take, the more AoE the enemies do, the worse she becomes. So yes, she sucks ass against AoE-oriented attacks. Hell, Japard is better against AoE attacks than her. Anyways, let's get back here to the drawing. She's also going to be giving some crit rate to the whole team as well, so allies that don't like crit rate obviously wouldn't be using this too much. What kind of buff does she give? She gives the only thing, I guess she only puts like a real debuff on the enemy, which is break support, so we can go ahead and talk about those real quick. He is going to be providing a 25% crit damage bonus right now. Another thing that he does is he relies on enemies attacking him, so if you have a lot of single target attackers and they're not hitting him, it's going to be less likely that you get his follow-up attack, which then puts up a shield on your allies. She more or so relies on herself / her follow-up to do her healing that she's doing here, and she can actually get that up quite a lot, meaning she can be technically, I guess, more beneficial in a follow-up team depending on the enemy you're facing. Now, overall, the crit damage here is absolutely massive, and really the extra break damage that she provides really doesn't help much, but I'm talking in terms of just getting attacks out, right? So if she's following up on the enemy more than he is, technically you'd be giving more follow-ups to someone like your Topaz or giving more stacks to someone like, let's say your Fijao, right? So in some scenarios, I think she could be better than Aventurine, but overall for follow-up teams, I think Aventurine is just better. Let's move back over to the crit queen herself, Miss Fu Xuan, which I have a hate boner for now because people are just keep coping and saying that she is the meta still and is future-proofing your account. You're out of your goddamn mind. What else does Fu Xuan do? Oh, HP buff, right? So this means if you have allies that scale off of HP, she might be your girly there. So HP buff to the team as well. Okay, well, this applies to both of them, right? Debuff with trend, right? Oh, one thing she does here, she prevents 1 CC. She does not block a debuff. She prevents 1 CC. Now, Aventurine on the other hand does something very special. Whenever he has a shield up on himself, he prevents 1 CC on himself, and then he also is going to be giving 50% F-res to the whole team with a shield on, right? So if they don't have a shield, they don't get the F-res. As long as his shield doesn't break, he shouldn't be getting CC'd, meaning whenever your allies get attacked, he should be keeping shields up on them at all times. She only has 1 CC prevention and can only be activated once every 3 turns or once every time you activate your skill move, which kind of puts her in a sticky predicament sometimes, especially when you're facing a lot of enemies that do CC, because whenever that one's out the window, it's kind of open season for everyone to get CC'd after that, and if she gets CC'd, that means that she can't heal herself up. Now, she will be taking increased damage from your teammates, but if her skill wears off in that CC period, then that's just really kind of down bad horrendous. Now, it's kind of hard to compare what each one of these do together because there's not really much of a comparison to make between this and this. Like, I mean, like most of it between them is like differences. Right now, both of these are more DPS focused, I would say. He gives himself crit rate and some damage. He gives himself crit rate and stuff like that from his kit. She gives herself attack and stuff from her crit. We're going to put here more DPS oriented, even though I think she does more DPS on break oriented teams versus her. She doesn't really do much DPS. Like, you can get some DPS with the ult, but overall it's not really that much. So all in all, guys, if I were to put her on the tier list, I'd probably move her to about right here on the tier list. If I'm being honest with you guys, I would probably say Aventurine, just judging from the kit and my playtime with her, is probably a little bit better than her. I think universally she is better than HUO HUO, so I'd probably either move HUO HUO to the back here or move HUO HUO down here to this tier. I've always been a voucher to say that HUO HUO is up here in like this tier. I still think the best to stay in the game is probably Aventurine right now. I would probably put her like either in between here, or move HUO HUO over here. Now, as far as Fu Xuan goes, I mean, I think Fu Xuan is still fine to stay in this bracket here. I think that wherever Lingsha is at, Gallagher has to be close behind. I don't think Gallagher's up here because I think she is objectively better than Gallagher is. So if the case that you know, she was down here for whatever reason, right, then he would move down here, and then I think Luocha would also move down yet another tier as well. But I mean, from what I look at of her right now, I do think she's a better sustain character than Miss Xuan here, so I do think she'd be above here. Realistically, I think all three of these characters will probably be up here. I think she is better than HUO HUO. With that out of the way, with that comparison out of the way, let's talk about the real juice. Topaz versus you-know-who, Miss Lingsha. So let's go ahead and get into the Lingsha and Topaz comparisons. The deciding factor here for you should be, hey, do I need a break team? Because if you do, Lingsha is your girl, right? Lingsha is going to be your break Buki, right? So let's go ahead and put break here. If you are pulling for a follow-up team, or if you have a lot of follow-up characters, this is going to be your best in slot right here. Especially if you just pulled Fei Zhao or Fei Zhao, whatever her name is. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Get mad in the comment section down below. She is going to be the better option. She is on the best in slot team for the current follow-up team. So I think pulling Topaz here can be really good, especially if you aim for extra dupes. E1 Topaz, super, super, super good. So I would recommend pulling for this. If you already have maybe 2 like limited sustains on your account, then this is going to be a great option. Even if you have like a Gallagher on your account and one other like limited sustain, I still think that it's kind of worth it over her if you have a follow-up team. Now, if you have a break team, still, I mean, Gallagher is really not much of a downgrade IMO, as you saw in the previous section, to what Miss Lingsha can bring to the table, in my opinion. Lingsha can do a good amount of damage. She can run any team. She can keep your team alive. But, I mean, how much more value is it really offered outside of Gallagher, right? Like, yes, there is a power creep involved for what she can do compared to Gallagher, of course, but how much is the difference really, right? Like, I think she'll probably have an easier time of keeping your team alive, like, don't get me wrong, but it really just depends on, like, how your Gallagher's already doing for your account. Is your Gallagher getting your account killed? Then maybe this is the option for you, right? If you only have Gallagher and one other, like, limited 5-star sustain character, right? On the Topaz end over here, if you have a follow-up account, I would really recommend her. I love using her on my follow-up team. She actually makes a world of a difference on that team, and she also helps a lot with just, like, other follow-up teams in general, right? If you're using a team with Moe's, she helps out. If you're using a team with Dr. Ratio, she helps out. She is kind of like a crux buffer, I would say, like one of a central like buffer slash sub DPS for that role, and that's why I would recommend her there. And also, guys, do you want Noombi or a bunny? Depends on what you think is cuter as well. Anyways, gamers, that's going to do it for today's video. I recorded this video out of whack on stream, so if you see comments from before and after, that's why, because I recorded out of whack. Anyways, guys, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I would really, really appreciate it if you did hit that subscribe button. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. This video is going to get dislike bomb to hell. Oat Milk Fairy says Bunny and March is better than Topaz. I disagree with. Even though a lot of people are going to shit on Topaz, I still think Topaz is the goated goatness of queens. And I think that she's a really good pull, not to say Lingsha's not. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure you don't look at Topaz's ass if you plan on summoning for her. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. See you later. Bye-bye.